right, let's go. Welcome back, Mr. Mark. How's it going?
It's going fantastically. Nice to be back.
Yeah, so this is a first of its kind regular talk that you and I and in future other advertisers are going to have on monthly cadence at this point. Cadence, and then maybe we can increase it later, right? Just talk about advertising. Is that
That sounds
cool?
good. That
Yeah.
sounds good. I had a conversation with a client about this just a little while ago.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
We were talking about how businesses don't know that they have to advertise to scale their business, and that advertising, no matter how much you like it or don't like it, doesn't matter. If you want to scale, you have to advertise.
Hmm.
Referrals will never scale you. Even traditional marketing efforts won't scale you. You got to advertise. I mean, when I say traditional, I mean I don't want to bust on anything anyone does. So I'm not trying to like bust on SEO, but I'm just saying if you really want to scale your business, at some point you got to run ads.
I agree with you because most of the platforms prioritize ads over organic stuff. Let's take Google as an example. I'm an SEO guy, an SEM guy too, but I always tell my clients you got to do both because it's good. There's a lot of value for you to rank on the first page of Google,
Hmm.
but those rankings are buried way down for most of the search terms. So, the ads show on top of the organic results. So the ads get more visibility. Same deal with Facebook. Early days of Facebook, when I shared something on my wall, that's what I used to call it at the time. Now they call it feed. Everybody would see it and people like it. Now, for me to get a couple of likes from my friends, it takes a lot of cool shit, like a picture
Right.
I posted the other day, right? So I think the only way, so the platforms where social media or search or whatever platform you use, they're going to prioritize ads over organic because guess what? That's how they make the money. Same deal with newspapers, right? Newspapers back in the days, even before digital, for you to be there, you had to pay them. So you got to pay to play. The organic stuff is, in my own opinion, is complementary to paid ads. So you're 100% correct. If you want to scale, you gotta spend some money.
It's interesting. I had a conversation just this morning with a friend of mine who was in the newspaper software business. We were talking about advertising in the newspaper,
Yeah.
and it was, if you got contract rates, that meant you took a long-term contract and your ads were going to show there week after week after week, and those were the most effective advertisers. The other thing I learned was if you open up the newspaper, the right hand top side of the page was
Hmm.
the most sought after because apparently that's what you look at when you open that paper. So just like everything else, placement,
Yeah.
and consistency, and that's what you know. Social is great. I do it. You do it. Videos are great. Everything's great. But in the end, if you want to scale, you have to advertise because as many videos as we'd love to make, we can't make videos all day long.
Yeah.
Uh, but you get like if you find an ad that gives you a break even or even an ROI, you can scale that across multiple platforms.
Dude, I'm glad you said the break even. Here's another thing. Here's my philosophy. Um, I work with a client right now that is e-commerce that have ROAS of non-branded 405, which is great, branded 10, which is not great because they're cannibalizing the brand, but they think it's great, but they do it anyways. And and I tell them every time they want to launch a new campaign, they're obsessed with return on ad spend. And I'm like, you know what? Here's the thing with advertising. It's not always supposed to have ROAS of 4 or up. A
Hmm.
lot of times you're just trying to get people in the funnel. So maybe even a ROAS of 2 or 1 even. Like so as long as you have a new customer, then you can remarket to, through email, through retargeting ads, through whatever, right? And I think one thing I've noticed is that most of the advertisers out there, they don't really see ads true value, which means finds you new customers, regardless of how much you spend. Let me give you another example. When I was running ads in paid loan industry, and I'm not that's a part of my career that I'm not proud of because payday loans are kind of like weird but and schemy, but I did learn a lot. Um, we would the pay to lender that would buy leads from us, I was more of an affiliate marketer at the time, but I did
Mhm.
do SEO and SEM. He would buy leads from us over $100. This is back in 2008, and he would give out like $200 payday loans. Like it was not that expensive, $300 payday loans. So I'm like, wait, you're losing money here, right? You're paying $100 per lead, or 80 to 100, depending on quality of leads. And there's gonna be a few bad leads, right? And the ones that are not gonna qualify. He said, yeah, my cost per client it was somewhere around $500, and his average loan was $400. So I'm like, you're losing money. He's like, yeah, but when I do fund people, a lot of these people are gonna keep coming back, like, and
Yep.
then he had like figured out this lifetime value of a customer. So that's why he was willing to pay for certain, not all the leads, for certain type of leads, up to like $100 per lead,
That's
because
a lot of people miss out on e-commerce
yeah.
and and service companies is that you have to look at that first you have to look at it as a client acquisition cost as
Hmm.
opposed to a did I make money on this order cost. Unless you have a one-time sale and a one-time sale only, in which case, if that's your business, you better have a big ticket item
Yeah.
or you better find another business because that's the worst one. Low ticket, one-time sale
Yeah.
is to me, the worst business to have. If you are in any other business, whether it's mobile car washing or detailing or e-commerce, you should have repeat business if you manage it right. Because
Yeah.
once they're in your atmosphere and once they bought from you, hit them up with email and everything else. But yeah, people look at that, especially in e-commerce. They're like, I'm like, how many times are you going to sell that customer a year? How many times are you going to sell them over the next 5 years? Because you only paid to acquire them once.
Yeah. No, and it's exactly why I think it's not just e-commerce, but everybody from your local landscaper to everybody. Don't look at how much you paid and how much money you got for that lead. See what was the lifetime value of that lead, and the customer. And
Well, this is a come back. You have to have some rough idea of your numbers.
no, of course, yeah, it's like a little baby steps. First, your cost per MQL and all the way up. Yeah, and I think with small businesses tend to not think that way because they don't have the expertise. They're not savvy enough to be able to calculate that stuff, and there's a little bit of gap between us, the advertisers, and the clients a lot of times
This
because
is
they
true.
just don't get it.
Well, advertisers often are pulling from their pocket or from their operating expenses to pay for advertising because they didn't build marketing
Yeah,
into, they went from like, it's me and my truck or me and my van to, okay, now I want to expand, but you didn't model your pricing like your pricing can't be the same anymore because
yeah,
now you have to have advertising. Now it's not just going to be like if you hire me, you were the best at doing whatever you did, but you hire me and I'm not going to be as good as the owner. So you have to
yeah.
build all that stuff into your model. And, that's something to think about when you start to scale. But you can't scale without, in the end, I don't think you can scale without some form of advertising or multiple forms
I
of
I agree with you 100%. And this is something. Um, I got into this business doing SEO and SEM at the same time, and I realized how long it was taking for SEO to kick in. Even back in the days where SEO was good and you could just live off SEO, I learned how to do SEO and SEM at the same time because there's a sense of urgency for you to sell now and I scale. And then while you're doing that, then also you want to build out your organic and earned media. And there is a challenge with advertising is that besides the ROAS and ROI stuff that we just talked about, there's also where do I advertise? Like let me give you an example. I had a conversation with my brother yesterday. He and his business partner want to buy leads from he's a loan officer, right? And he's a broker too. They buy leads from major companies. I've been telling him that he needs his own marketing, but every time I have a conversation with him, and ends up being, "Oh, let's buy leads," and I'm like, it doesn't quite work like that because you gotta have a strategy, right? And if you don't have a strategy, like, you have to have content, you have to have landing page, you have to have the user trust, and then you have, based on the strategy, you got to know where to advertise. Obviously, if I run ads on Facebook for you, it's going to be a lot cheaper than Google, but which one do you think is going to matter to you, right? So is it Google, is it Facebook? We don't know, right? And I think I think the point I'm trying to make is that different businesses, different strategies will require different channels to advertise on, right? And it's not always, search is probably not the best for all clients, but I think if you're looking for a lower funnel type of clients, search is where it's at. Whereas Meta, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're higher funnel, mid to higher funnel, and you got to have some sort of nurturing in place. And if you don't have it, you're going to get a lot of high funnel leads. And that's the whole topic of lead nurturing, something a lot of advertisers don't get. And then they're
Well,
like, "Well, you're crappy." I'm like, "Well, because you're advertising Facebook, getting people to download ebooks. They're not like, the intent isn't necessarily to buy your product or services."
yeah, well, it requires, some sophistication to move from like running your, your own one person business or whatever it might be, and then moving up into advertising. And it is a learning process. Literally, just running ads may or may not get you a return. And
Yeah,
definitely running ads for 30 days probably isn't going to, you're not typically going to be profitable in that first 30 days. But all you're really trying to do is, can I get the phone to ring? Can I get qualified leads, and can I close them? And if you do that, that sort of proves the model, and
yeah,
then you can expand, how much you spend and where you spend it. The other thing is that, when, to use the newspaper analogy, all we were selling was ink on paper at that time, and an ad that you could see. No one clicked on that ad. You couldn't count the clicks. You just hoped that people would get some brand recognition, would call you, would visit your restaurant. And when you run an ad on Facebook, or I run an ad on Google Ads or wherever, those 90% of the people that don't click the ad still saw the ad.
yeah.
It's essentially, you're buying free advertising, free branding at that point.
Sure, you're influencing something. Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I'm glad you brought up the 30-day thing, because right now we are running programmatic advertising pilot for a client, and I just learned the other day that I might want to pause at the end of 30 days. And I'm like, why? Like, especially display ads they're gonna take more. You're gonna need more than 30 days to figure out if they did anything, because they're display ads, right?
Right.
And I guess education around advertising goals and KPIs is something that we marketers need to do a better job at, as opposed to just be order takers. I try doing that, and sometimes I even get in trouble because the client is like, you don't understand. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. And then we have this like little like friendly argument going on. And how do you go about that when you feel like you have to educate a client? I don't know.
We constantly educate clients, but we have the advantage, to a certain degree, of, well, I have the advantage of doing the same thing because we do Google Ads. So I'm not trying to manage, 10 different platforms and how they work. It's also tends to be typically closer, especially if you're running search ads, typically to the bottom of the funnel.
Mhm.
So, we're targeting people who are actively, because we can use intent-based keywords. We're
Yeah.
trying to target people who are actively looking for what you do. So that puts them totally different than if we're running an ad in the local, California Living magazine, and just hoping that someone that wants a pool sees our ad. So we're trying to find people with, searching for custom pool builder near me. So that helps. But what they don't understand is the things that we talked about, which is that, we're buying data at the beginning. You've not marketed much in many cases, so you really don't know whether your message resonates with people out there. So it's going to take a while to find the message, find the offer, find that combination. And our objective in the first month is always to get leads. Sometimes the fastest we've ever gotten a lead is 15 minutes after we launched. It's like, boom, first lead comes in. That's beautiful. But essentially what we're trying to do is produce a long-term flow of qualified marketing leads, so that you have something you can count on the phone's going to ring between, this and this number of times a month, and we're going to have people that want what we do. And that's what everybody needs.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about that. You just said you only do Google Ads, and I know that. Google Ads is changing a lot, right? And because of a bunch of different things, because of AI, because of the way people search. Let's just talk about LSAs. And
Sure.
it's a necessary evil, right? Like especially if you're a lawyer or if you're, somebody who qualifies for LSA ads. What are your takes on LSAs? Are they cannibalizing your search ads? Because I think they show up above search ads. What
Yeah.
is your experience? I think they are, but I want to see your take on that.
They'll show up at the top of the page. We do LSAs. Rebecca and my team manages all those, and it's interesting because you'll hear different feedback from clients. Some who love LSAs and get great results. Some people who are like, I ran LSAs, but they didn't work. Now, it's like anything else. I've taken on a lot of challenges in my career when people have told me we tried this and it didn't work. Well, oftentimes it comes down to, well, how did you try it? What does try it mean? So did you answer your phone? Did you select the right, just LSAs is not as complicated as Google Ads, but you still have to select the right, the right options. What type of leads are you targeting? You still have to answer your phone. You still have to be responsive or you're not going to show up. You got to make sure that you're doing the right things to rank at the top of the page. But we hear mixed, it's literally like any other advertising method. We hear mixed bags. Some people love their LSAs. Some people are not as happy. I don't know that I have the data behind all those things because as advertisers, especially digital advertisers, we always try to be data driven. But you can't be data driven when someone's just telling you their experience and you don't know exactly what they did or how they did it. I do think it's cool that you can be in the LSAs and you can be in Google Ads and you can own two spots.
Yeah, I have some data to share. We used to work with a living trust attorney. He's no longer a client, but not for lack of performance. He just wanted to do something different. And he liked LSA at the beginning because he was focusing on just creating living trust packages and estate planning. Mm-hmm. And at some point in his business, he wanted to switch to become a trust. He was always a trust litigator, but he wanted to do more litigation cases. So when he wanted to do more litigation cases and less living trust, because it was more profitable probably for him, then LSA wasn't good anymore because now you're entering this very specific part of estate planning.
Right, that's exactly right. When you get super niche with LSAs, it gets a little wonky.
Yeah, so I think if you're staying on a generic part, like let's say if you're a landscaper and you don't have any preference, LSA is probably going to work. I'm going to get gardening projects, I'm going to get cement, pave waves, or whatever. But if you want to just do they call it hard landscaping or pavement stuff like that, then LSA may not work because now you might get gardening leads,
Right.
And you're like, hey, I'm not a gardener, right? So I think that's my limited data. Most of the clients we work with don't run LSA because of e-commerce, but they do shopping instead. And the same story with shopping. The shopping feeds show on top. And the problem with that is that if you don't keep up with your feed, then you're kind of hurting things a little bit. But you're right. It also helps you be in two places, which kind of gains the consumer trust, right? Let me ask you.
The LSAs are very prominent.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily do the Google Guaranteed program anymore, but they're still, putting you at the very top of the page. And there's only 2 LSA spots visible, which is one of the reasons SEO is a challenge because by the time you go through LSAs, Google Ads, Maps,
local maps,
then you've got, then you're well down the page at that point. Plus,
SEO is finally getting to the point where you got to be higher funnel. Like for example, if you want to look for, let's just use the landscaping example I gave you earlier. Hey, if you're researching what you want to do with your backyard or your front driveway, and that's where SEO is useful. You kind of, it's like, you want to answer people's questions where they are researching, but when they're ready to buy, if you've been there through SEO, if they remember your brand because they were on your blog, they're like, hey, what should I do with my backyard? Blah blah blah. Then when they see your ad, then it helps with your conversion. I think so. That's the conversation I was having last week. Was it last week? Yeah, in San Diego, about importance of integrating SEO and SEM. I was basically telling SEO people, was like, stop like competing with the same keyword that the PPC people are bidding, because there's no way you're gonna do better than them. They're more prominent than you are. Figure out how you can help them convert better, and that meaning creating more, be in front of the consumers when they're in a research mode, because you don't want to show your ads when people are researching, right? You want to show ads when people are trying to buy. So when they're in research mode, you want to make sure you're ranking for some of those topics. So when they're ready to buy, and when they go to buy, then they see your ad, then they're more likely to convert. So
that makes total sense.
Yeah, and then if they also buy from SEO, it's great. There are people like me who scroll down, but I think SEO is becoming more of an influencing factor, at least for maybe not all the industries, but for a lot of industries.
I think for me, the way I use it is SEO is, or organic results, are things I look at to inform myself, to make pre-purchase.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when I'm ready to buy, I'll click on someone's ad. Now, I'm a Google Ads guy, so I don't click on people's ads just because I know that I don't want to drive up their costs. But to me, one is like, if you're advertising, it's obviously that's a buy thing. If you're just researching, scroll down through I want to read 5-10 different pages, articles, companies. So to me, that's a different. I think that's how that works. The other thing you talked about, how Google Ads is changing. One of the things that we found lately, as many changes as there are out there, we still find that we've gone back to some basics in terms of manual CPC and exact match to launch, because especially if you're a smaller budget client, if you run even phrase match and you get one keyword that that just takes off, they'll show that ad for almost everything. It'll eat up your budget. The other reason I run manual CPC and exact match is to get a sense of what the real search volume is in the area, because phrase match, or especially broad match, or God forbid AI max, is just going to blow up the search and make it look like there's 10 times more search for what you do than there is. There's a place for that. If you have an existing campaign, it's running well, you have a negative keyword list, you want to scale, then you start bumping that up and try and test it, though, experiment with it.
Yeah.
You don't have to just turn things, you can run experiments and figure out which performs better.
Yeah.
But the traditional methods still work well, which almost no one does.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really interesting thing. As long as I've been in this industry, certain things like exact match and manual bidding have always been around. Now, exact match isn't exactly exact, but it's closer.
Yeah, the problem I have I agree with you on exact match. I think broad match is or phrase match. I mean, phrase match is really broad match, and I don't know what broad match is. But
just targeting an audience.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's targeting audience. You're right, 100% right. But so the problem, so exact match is a good tip. Manual bidding is something that I want to just have a debate with you, because I think the problem with the manual bidding is that, my guess, and this may sound like a conspiracy theory, but you know me, I like to make those. I think Google devalues manual bidding and it prefers their style of bidding. Every time I've done manual bidding, I just didn't get enough impressions. I think
one of the reasons might be that you're actually getting the searches that exist for the service you're advertising. Because if I run exact match on landscaping near me, I may get some other, but if I run broad match on landscaping near me, I'm going to get buy a tree,
Yeah.
is good. So you're going to get a lot more search volume.
Yeah, but I mean, I've tried literally the same keyword match, exact match, um, manual bidding versus machine learning bidding, whatever it's called, and the um, the auto bidding, and the auto bidding ones. What's the proper term for it? It's not auto bidding. What is it called?
Bid strategy?
Bid strategy.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Like, whenever I let Google bid for me, like, I just get more clicks. It's weird.
Well,
Literally,
no, you told them bid for me.
yeah. So yeah,
Sure.
yeah. No, but like at the end, the cost per click will end up being about the same that I was targeting.
Okay. What's your cost per conversion? That's the real question.
Yeah, the cost per conversion. So I think it's and I think another thing is that that I've noticed, because I'm more of a search strategist when then I have my SCM guys running things and they're great at what they do. But I think a lot of SCM people are afraid. My guys are very smart, but I think a lot of them want us to stay up to date with Google Trends. They don't want to be too old school. There's a stereotype against it, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm obviously old school. I'm also looking at hard results, and we also track not just conversions, but we track calls and forms so we can see too many. I have a saying, you've heard me say it probably before, conversions ain't leads. People get carried away with, look at my 27 conversions. Yeah, but they were all people looking for a job.
Yeah,
That's
dude. I don't even like optimizing campaigns per conversion, because once you get a couple of bad conversions, right? Um,
that's why that's why we do eventually move into max conversions with a target CPA, but we
but
want to make sure we're
you
feeding
see
the
how
engine.
to write conversions, right?
Yeah, we want to feed the engine correctly, because
Yeah,
one thing that I found out even recently within the last 6 months is like conversion. If you use max conversions, it will pull old conversion data from your account.
oh,
So
sorry.
if you've had crap conversions in the past, it very well may be optimizing on crap conversions.
That's exactly why we start new campaigns when we take over accounts somebody else is running, because we don't know historical what they did.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm sure you do the same too, right?
Oh, we do the same. Oh, we almost always rebuild the
Yeah,
campaign, and people are like, "Can you match this conversion rate, or can you match this cost per conversion?" I'm like, "Well, let's take a look at it." You
yeah,
got to lift up and go behind the scenes, because then you find out, well, all your convert. I did this the other day. I looked at a client's best converted campaign. They were all on junk searches
yeah,
because they put door and windows. Someone put door and windows in their keyword list, but they're not a door and window company. And
yeah,
then they end up getting conversions on glass company near me. Well, if you sell window blinds, glass company near me isn't gonna exactly get
yeah,
you the
yeah.
window. So
It's
you
just,
look at that raw data,
yeah,
but then you look behind the scenes, you find out it's all crap.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you and I are gonna have these calls again. We're gonna get more into details with Google, but a lot of it has to do with those Google auto recommendations. People just accept it. Even very seasoned SEM people, they're just like, okay, accept. I'm like, wait, what did you just do? Like, why did you do that? Google is trying to get more money out of you.
Yeah, and they'll auto apply those if they let if you let
Oh,
them. They'll
auto
just,
replies are even like worse. And those are terrible.
well,
And
that's when you see a campaign take a sudden nosedive, and the client calls to say, "Why did my campaign just stop producing?" And then you look and you realize they just went in and accepted all recommendations
yeah,
and destroyed your beautiful campaign. You know.
how do you deal with those so-called PPC, like the account managers from Google? Because if you go look at LinkedIn and they're just straight off the school, and then just because they have a Google email your client, I need you to talk to them. I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to go through this again.
I don't. It's funny that they all reach out to you, but for the most part, I feel like our advertisers have just grown tired of that. I don't have them going to those Google Ads people as often.
Yeah, how do you
When
push back? Do they know already? You tell them they don't know what they're doing, because I just
they ask, I tell them, don't. The good thing is if you do any research at all, or you're on Facebook or you're in any Google Ads group, every Google ads person has the same message. Don't talk to them. They don't know it. They've never run a campaign. They're going from it.
They're-
They've got a sheet of paper.
Yeah, there's most people. Like I told my client, I'm like, people that reach out to you, Google, they're salespeople. They're trying to get you to spend more money. They're not truly PPC experts, you know. And if you go look at the LinkedIn profile, look at mine, and like this beard didn't get gray on its own. Like I've been in this field for 20 years more, where that person straight out of college, and I get it, the newer generation is smarter, but like they work for Google, they have incentives to promote Google.
Switch
And
to broad match, raise your budget.
yeah, Performance Max, AI Max, and we should, I know I told you we are gonna stick at 30 minutes. I think next time we should talk about, because I think there's a lot changing with, my initial assessment of AI Max is sucked, but from what I hear, it's improving. I do want to talk about that at some point. I know you're.
I have a test I'm going to run on it in the middle of October.
Yeah, let me know how it goes, because
it'll be a very controlled test. The last time I ran it, it was kind of a shit show.
Yeah, because they didn't have as much. They didn't give you any control.
Yeah, they don't give you any control, but I'm going to control it to the best of my ability. It shot up click cost. Search terms were absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And it doubled the ad spend. Like, you can double your ad spend in they have rules like you can spend 2.5 times as much as your daily budget or something, but it literally was going to spend all the ad spend for the month in the first 2 weeks until we turned it off, and then it just like settled right down.
Yeah, I think they jumped the gun.
Yeah,
like they usually do, they jump the gun. I think Google, and again, this is me being philosophical a little bit, Google is getting a little desperate because I think AI is putting pressure on executives to innovate more. And I use Gemini a lot. It's getting really good, but it needs to mature. Like, you got to do this when it comes to this wasting other people's money. Dear Google, you have spent enough. You've wasted enough of people's money. Please don't waste any more, because like clients ended up getting mad at you and I, right? People are running the campaign, not Google, right? So
yeah, well, we often try to stand between Google and the client to help them, give them better advice.
I'm curious to see what your next experiment of Google AI features Max is going to go. So I think since we already passed 30 minutes, let's
talk about that next time.
And next time we should talk about that for sure.
Okay, beautiful. It's good as always to talk to you.
All right, dude, same here. Have a good rest of the day.